The Outer Worlds is the you got chocolate and my peanut butter of RPGs. Obsidian, a developer that's made sequels to both BioWare's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and Bethesda's Fallout 3, has merged these two distinctive flavors, and they taste great together. I wouldn't quite call this Space Frontier themed adventure the best of both worlds, but it's a creative and well-made take that's both familiar and new all at once.
Ah, you've landed good. Hawthorne should be close by.
The Outer Worlds takes place in a fleshed-out solar system ruled by corporate feudalism and full of dark humor.
I'd shake your hand, but I've been hauling corpses.
Everywhere you look, there's a satirical slogan or mascot,
And it's not the best choice, it's Spacer's choice.
a worker being treated as hilariously disposable, and oppressive policies keeping everyone in line. And as a big fan of the short-lived sci-fi western show Firefly, I spotted its influences everywhere, from the brand name of the energy weapon ammo to the fact that your junkie transport's young naive engineer lady talks like this.
Load vapors into a liquid propellant tank? I think I know how to do that.
It isn't hard to picture Captain Malcolm Reynolds reading off some of the more sarcastic dialogue options either. In some ways, it's nice that the story doesn't put a face on the evil corporate board that rules over this isolated colony until around 2/3 of the way through the roughly 30-hour campaign. On one hand, it feels aimless for a long time. But on the other, the quest to help a mad-ish scientist revive your fellow colonists from hibernation kind of fades into the background as you casually wander into the middle of morally gray conflicts and pick winners and losers, sometimes by shooting the losers. It's very familiar to anyone who's played a Fallout game, in that there's almost always multiple ways to fight, talk, or sneak your way through. While I did enjoy hearing about the philosophical differences between factions, there aren't many big surprises in how quests play out.
What a weight that is off my shoulders.
There is a faction system in play that keeps track of who you've helped or wronged, but it never really felt important because for the most part its only rewards are at vendors. But it's nice to know someone cares.
Making my way there.
One surprise is how bug-free it all is. I've only had one temporarily broken side quest in more than 30 hours.
Watch and learn.
Good job, Cap!
Along the same lines, anybody who's played a BioWare RPG will recognize the Outer Worlds companion quests. I wouldn't say there's a breakout star among the crew, but they all have interesting backstories and are well acted. Even Felix has his moment.
I have prepared a list of reasons why I believe you should hire me to join the crew of your ship and/or outlaw gang.
And because you can have two companions with you at all times, every combination has lines of banter between them for extra personality alongside your voiceless protagonist. Not every idea is a remix, though. The Outer Worlds does its own clever things, like the way its skills and perk system incorporate companions into your character build. So if you're concentrating your skills on guns and dialogue, you can balance yourself out by bringing along Max to boost your hacking or Povarti to boost your engineering. On top of that, you get a good amount of old-school control over their gear, perks, and behavior without getting bogged down in the overcomplicated weeds, and each one has a special combat skill that you can activate at will. Those come in handy when you're overwhelmed. These cutscene attacks can give you a breather in a big fight, and a lot of them have stun effects on top of big damage. The first-person only combat is definitely more on the Fallout side of the spectrum, but it distinguishes itself with a faster pace and more emphasis on precision aim. Where Fallout's VATS does the work of targeting an enemy's weak points for you, the Outer Worlds' limited slow motion ability rewards good aim with specific debuffs like blindness or crippling limbs.
Let's take him down!
Your ship, the Unreliable, serves as a hub that takes you between worlds and lets you mingle with your crew. It's similar to the Normandy in Mass Effect, to the point where it even has a sassy AI lady to chat with.
It's been scientifically proven that those with more birthdays live longer.
The locations it takes you to are all very different. Most are untamed wilderness full of alien beasts and marauders, but there's also a Citadel-like space station and a future urban capital city. It keeps things feeling fresh, and the colorful art style never feels drab or one-note. Because the Outer Worlds is split into smaller open-world maps, there's definitely not as much discoverable stuff out there to unexpectedly stumble upon between quest markers, but there's still a fair amount to hunt down, including the powerful and unique science weapons. That's another cool thing the Outer Worlds does with its skill system. It makes traditionally non-combat skills like science, persuasion, and hacking valuable in a fight by passively causing enemies to flee or cower. So even if you build toward non-combat skills, you're still at least somewhat viable against wildlife or marauders who can't be reasoned with. Another very original feature is faults, where you occasionally have the opportunity to opt into a weakness in exchange for a perk point that can unlock a powerful bonus. I got a few in my run that gave me vulnerabilities to certain attacks, which are meaningful weaknesses but rarely affected how I fought. The more interesting one gave me a debuff whenever I took fall damage. It's not a huge difference, but it is a random element that makes each playthrough unique. Meanwhile, the loot and weapon modding system lets you spend cash to level up a favorite gun to keep pace with your progress, and change the damage type to specialize when going up against a group of different enemies. There's a lot of it, but inventory management was never too much of a hassle, and you can always break stuff down instead of dropping it so it doesn't feel like a waste. With The Outer Worlds, Obsidian has found its own path in the space between Bethesda and BioWare, and it's a great one. And considering that new RPGs from either of those influential developers are still years away, this game couldn't have been timed any better. It's not as explorable as one big open world, but it still packs in a large portion of flexible quests and conflicts within its series of smaller ones. And the combat, character, and companion systems have enough new spins on existing ideas to make it feel like an homage with its own personality rather than a copy. For more on The Outer Worlds, check out the first minutes of gameplay, take a tour of the Stellar Bay settlement, and get some character creation tips straight from Obsidian. And for everything else, stick with IGN.